just by pure chance, just because of the historical circumstances, the special circumstances, of having to carry the weight of that history and to honour it, that somehow the current of history passed to them. And I think they would have, all of them, individually felt that, and that's why they made the decisions they made.
Sands, Bobby, anti-H Block, Armagh, political prisoner, 30,000.
Bobby Sands, the hunger strikers' leader, was elected to Westminster on a wave of public sympathy. It was the beginning of Sinn Féin as a modern political party. 4 weeks later, Bobby Sands died. But Mrs. Thatcher refused to negotiate. After 9 more deaths, the strike was called off. Mrs. Thatcher had won. But she paid a price for her victory. The powerful historical forces she had summoned up in Ireland were not under her control.
And suddenly, she was confronted by people that she didn't think very much of, that she didn't consider very important or very significant, that didn't figure at all in her understanding of the priorities facing her at any particular moment in time. And suddenly, she's confronted by history, if you like, a very real history, one represented by the Irish perception of history.
Mrs. Thatcher, if you like, in stage managing all this kind of thing, actually played into the hands of the Republican movement at the time. She disturbed some very unquiet ghosts.
Suddenly, in 1982, the ghosts of Britain's grand imperial past returned. On April the 2nd, Argentina invaded the Falklands. Within hours, the British Chiefs of Staff came to Number 10. They proposed that Mrs. Thatcher send a fleet of ships and men to recapture the islands.
In fact, it was Sir Henry Leach, I think, who was the first Lord of the Admiralty, who said to her, "Well, Prime Minister, I can only tell you, if you don't do it, this country will never be quite the same country again." And that went right like an arrow through her.
But she sent the task force, she got the task force together, and she sent it that day. It was a marvellous moment for her, and she did it in a truly Churchillian manner. And she took the tide, just as Churchill did, against all the play-safe people in the cabinet, people who'd been conditioned in the whole ethic of appeasement and compromise and didn't think we were strong enough to do it. And they were just outnumbered. The flow of public feeling rushed over them because she invoked it immediately.
As the fleet sailed out from Portsmouth, the warships passed over divers, working to recover the wreck of the Mary Rose. Henry VIII's great wooden flagship had sunk in a battle with the French over 400 years before. The recovery teams were based in the naval dockyards.
When we were going out to the site from the naval base, we go past the hot walls, the defensive gun battery that controls the entrance to the harbour, and there were the wives and the mothers waving the ships goodbye. It was terribly emotional, terribly highly strung. I thought I'd never see such a thing in England again. I was incredibly surprised that I felt so emotional and so passionately in support of the people who were going, because it seemed we were almost fighting an old-fashioned war, to me personally. But I was probably terribly wrong in that judgment, but it seemed to me it was an old-fashioned war. We were back with the invasion force, which was my last memory of war, my last personal memory.
I think the Falklands was something which Mr. Galtieri, he needed a good smack in the teeth, as I think, that he think we were going to sit around scratching ourselves. We had our national pride to think of, and I think this is where Margaret Thatcher came into her own in making a decision to go there and teach him a lesson he wasn't going to forget.
Pleased to inform Her Majesty that the White Ensign flies alongside the Union Jack in South Georgia. God save the Queen.
What happens next?
Thank you very much.
Just rejoice at that news and congratulate our forces and the Marines.
She whipped round and said, "Rejoice, rejoice!" You know, like an absolute, it was like a tornado sweeping in, and then practically, you know, I could see them start back. It was extraordinary. She had this power then. She could see herself as Churchill.
On the 14th of June, a ceasefire was announced on the Falklands. The Argentine troops surrendered to the British.
Hello and welcome to Southsea Castle for what promises to be the most remarkable archaeological event that we in this country are ever likely to see. The raising and homecoming of the Tudor warship, the Mary Rose.
At the time of the recovery, in the public eye, there was a close association, and the two things, the Falklands returning of the fleet, the successful return of the task force, and the recovery of the Mary Rose, were inescapably interwoven. What we were bringing back, I think, was the intense feeling that we're an island, and we've defended an island for centuries.
There is the wreck of the Mary Rose. It has come to the surface. There is the first sight of this flagship of Henry VIII. It's the first time we have seen this in 437 years.
A wonderful moment. You hear all the sirens ringing, and I should think probably the Navy will get in on the act. It has.
I have no regrets. I have no regrets. We had to send that task force. We had to regain those islands for our people. Regrets is a chapter of pride for our country.
In November 1982, a victory parade was held in the City of London. Mrs. Thatcher and the Chiefs of Staff took the salute. None of the royal family was present.
A lot of the British people then realised that we could hold our heads up again and that we could be strong in the world. I mean, it was an extraordinary achievement, this flotilla going across the world, taking 6 weeks to get there and then boffing them and coming back again. I mean, I think that's a British-type achievement.
Is it very, very heavy?
No, it's not heavy. This is all in porcelain. The quality of the work is superb. Look above all at the expression on the faces of the Marines. It is the spirit of Britain, and it is everything that makes us great.
She brought back, I think, something which a lot of people thought that they'd never see again. She was giving the country back their pride. Great back in the Great Britain. Our history is special in as much that everyone's tried to give us a good hiding since the year dot. The Romans failed, I think, really miserably. They didn't really succeed in conquering the whole of England.
We, the British people, are proud of what has been done. Proud of these heroic pages in our island story. Proud to be here today to salute the task force. Proud to be British.
She was on a high after the Falklands, of course, and capitalized on it to great effect. Later, just as Churchill did, she was to some extent entrapped by it. And that is always the danger, that of politicians who drink from this potion. It's very difficult to know when to stop.